Hey garden friends, welcome back to the greenhouse. I'm doing a little bit of seed starting today, and I'm going to do tomatoes and a few peppers. This is an heirloom tomato. You see this one? ANANAS noire. I'm not sure how, ananas. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it's this beautiful green and pink, I don't know, striated, whatever, coloration. And I saw it on Gardener's World, which I love that show. A gal over there in England was growing it, and she swore by it. And in their cool climate, it performed beautifully. It's, let me see, how many days? 6 to 10 weeks. Let's see. Sprout 7 to 14 days. I was looking at how soon it yields. Some of them will tell you 50 days, 75 days, what it is. This one does not say. But anyways, I know I wanted some, and so I'm going to plant 4 seeds, one in each slot. I have this number. This is one of my burpee seed starting trays, which I just love. I picked them up last year at Tractor Supply, and they really worked well. I liked that they had the rubbery bottom, and this is a good size square. I also have a smaller one that I'll use for other things that you could do a lot more in, but for today, I'm going to use this one. So I just use regular potting soil. I don't use anything special. This is Edna's Best by E.B. Stone because it's one of the better brands that I can get locally. I'm sure there's lots and lots of good potting soils. This one it's loose enough, what have you. I don't adhere to the belief that seed starting mix needs to be super loose, because working with some farmers and agronomists on a project for commercial growing, we have learned that plants, they need that resistance with the roots getting started to grow well, meaning it makes them tougher, whatever. It's kind of like flexing a muscle. When we exercise, we're building strength, and that's the same with the seeds as they get started. If they cannot muscle their way through this loose potting soil rather than a really light seed starting mix, then they're not going to be hardy. This makes your plants hardier and tougher. So I go with a potting soil rather than a seed starting mix. So that's why I use it, and my learning education about that in the last few years. I have used just potting soil for decades. I didn't even know for the longest time there was such a thing as seed starting mix, and I've never had any issues. So let go of the belief that you have to use seed starting mix. Back when my grandmother and grandfather, when I was a kid and they gardened, they didn't even have purchased potting soil. They made their own mixes from what they had. They composted, they had manures, they had, all that stuff, leaf mold that they made, and they started seeds all the time. So it's been done for centuries. It's only been in the last, actually, couple decades that seed potting soils and whatever have become so popular because people have gotten away from making their own. So that being said, I've got these pretty well filled up, and I am going to make sure I put the tomatoes, I keep wanting to say peppers because I am doing peppers too, in slot number 1 because that's where I have it written on my seed starting record. And I want to make sure I have the right one in the right place. So I'm just going to do 1 seed per slot, maybe 2 just to be sure, because I could always divide them out later. Only thing I have a problem with is I can't kill a plant. If I have 2, then I would have to separate it out and plant both. So, well, I don't know. A couple of these are stuck together, so there's 2 in them, even though it looks like 1. So the one I did just put 1 seed. I'm trying not to be crazy with it, and I'm sure with being different 4 different ones, I will get some germination. So I'm going to just press them down into the soil, cover them very slightly with the potting mix, And that's those seeds planted. That's the tomatoes. Now, next is the habanada. This is a habanero that has no heat. Now, a fellow garden vlogger, sorry about that, my battery died. Okay, this is the habanada, and I said a fellow garden vlogger, and she's Soil and Margaritas. She had grown this, and she said they were tasty, but they took a long time to ripen. So I want to make sure I get an early start, because I have, even though I'm a zone 8 and she's a zone 5 or 6, I can't remember, I have a shorter growing season than she does. So I'm going to have to take some extra steps to make sure mine will ripen. And I may have to cover my raised beds. I'm going to put a couple in each, just in 2 of them, I should say, not in each one. Okay. I will cover my raised beds. I showed in one of my videos how I cover my raised beds, and it's just with a piece of concrete mesh, and it's just the tension that holds it there. So I don't have to put in any hoops or anything else. That covers it, and then I'll cover it maybe at night. Go and cover it with plastic, like a plastic tub or plastic, not plastic tub, but I have plastic that I put over my greenhouse, so greenhouse plastic. Am I getting thrown in the shadows? Okay, so that's the habanada right there, and then the next one is jalapeno. Now, in the past, I've grown. This is the jalapeno version that has no heat. But has all the flavor of a jalapeno. I had grown the one called Savory, and I didn't have any success with that, but I didn't take the extra steps of making sure it was covered, especially at night in the summer for us, because we get some cool nights. We could get some very warm days, but it cools down a lot here. So it can get down into the 50s throughout the summer at night. So that's why a lot of my things won't always ripen as quickly as others in lower zones, is because the nighttime temperatures dip here in my area. We live in the mountains, and I live by a lake, kind of down in like a hole. The whole neighborhood's kind of in a hole, so cold air sinks. It makes for very pleasant summer weather, because even though we get very hot during the day, we'll get up into the 90s. At night, it really cools down, and I can cool the house down, and it's just very pleasant. And then the next day, I have no trouble in keeping the house cool. We don't have air conditioning or anything. We have a water cooler, but we didn't even use it last year, even during the hottest part. And we had some pretty hot days. They were record-breaking. Okay, so this is a poblano. My poblano pepper, last year I put in a spot that I didn't have good access to, and though I was getting peppers off of it right and left, I had a hard time picking them, so I didn't make the best use of that space. But this is in slot number 4. I already have it written on my seed starting record. Now this is my new seed starting journal I have on my website for purchase. So if you want one, go ahead. This one is sunflowers. I still have my last year's one up, and it has different garden designs on it, but it really comes in handy with keeping things a bit more organized, and I need all the help I can get in keeping things organized. So there we got it. This potting soil is very, very damp, so I'm not going to worry about watering these in. And it does have a catch tray for when I do want to water. And what I will do is I will cover this with plastic wrap, or sometimes I have some plastic lids that I can lay on top that work well as far as keeping the moisture in. And I will put this in on my light rack in my office for these to germinate. I have a heat mat for seed starting, and I think I have room on it, and I could put it on that as well. I don't always put it on the heat mat, but sometimes they say it aids in germination, and it keeps the plants healthier when they're germinated that way. I couldn't say for sure because I do it both ways. So I will show you where I have this in on my light rack, and we'll take it from there, and I'll report in later on how well they're doing. So here is my indoor seed starting rack. This is just one of those utility racks. Some people call them baker racks from Costco. I paid about $75 for it. I think they're around $125 now, but you can get them for $100 if you find them on sale. And here is my tomatoes and peppers I started. They're down here so I can video them for you. This is the heat mat underneath here, but they've already germinated. So now, let me get up here. I put them up here and I elevate them so they're closer to the light here. I could bring the light down, but this way I can adjust for different height plants without having to move the light all the time, and I can have different height plants underneath it. This is the one grow light I have here. The others are all just fluorescents that I get, the warm and cool bulbs, which I showed you in a previous video, and they work fine for me because I put, as soon as I can, I put everything out in the greenhouse, and the natural sunlight is the absolute best. So if you enjoyed this video, please come on back and see how these progress through the summer. And I will see you in my next video.